Each of us this morning opened our eyes, and we were here in this space, this world, this earth that we find ourselves in. And then we started to make decisions. And those decisions, how we make those decisions, how we base what to do and what not to do, I think is core to being a Bharatiya and contributes towards our uniqueness. So we have a decision-making process which I'm going to try and identify and highlight as being unique to us. And I would say that that decision-making process is what not to do. So as a civilization, we have learned that to thrive in this space, there are things that one shouldn't do. And I'm going to share a story from one of the Puranas to emphasize and highlight that. In one of the Puranas, it identifies a scene. The scene is in a forest, there are woods, and a woodcutter is chipping away at a tree, trying to gather firewood and kindling. And he sees in the clearing 4 sages approaching him, and he thinks this is a great opportunity. These are people who have done sadhana in the mountains, and there are 4 of them. I must take this opportunity and ask them some questions. And so he approaches them and pays his humble respects, and he asks the first one, please, could you share with me, what is it that you can do? What mastery have you attained? What knowledge have you acquired? And the first sage says, I have a particular siddhi. From a bone, I can reconstruct a whole skeleton, just with a mantra like this. And the woodcutter, being a good old modern mindset, I don't believe it, I have to see it. And so the sage picks up a little bone, says his mantra, and suddenly there is a skeleton laid out in its entirety in front of him. And the woodcutter touches the sage's feet and says, thank you so much, I believe it, I'm just in awe of what you can do. The second sage says, what I can do is with a mantra, I can clothe that entire animal with flesh, with bones, with blood. I can give the form its completeness. And the woodcutter says, I have to see that to believe it. That's not possible. And so the sage says his mantra, and suddenly there is the body of a dead tiger, entirely reconstructed just with a mantra. And the woodcutter touches his feet, and then he turns to the third sage, and he says, please, Gurudev, what is it that you can do? And he says, just as he's about to speak, the fourth sage interrupts, and he says, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but will you just accompany me, and let's climb up and sit in this tree, and we can watch what happens from there. And he says, yeah, sure, okay, fine. And so they climb into the tree, and then the woodcutter says, I'm sorry, Gurudev, what is it that you can do to the third sage? And the third sage says, with a mantra, I can bring life back into something that's dead. And he clicks his fingers, says his mantra, and suddenly the tiger comes to life. And doing what tigers do, it immediately kills 3 of the sages. The woodcutter turns to the fourth sage, and he says, Gurudev, what is it that you have? And he says, I have the capacity to decide what to do and what not to do. And this is a really pertinent and relevant understanding, because the identity in Bharat, instinctively we know what not to do, and we give it names and we say it's Dharmic not to do this, etc. But without thinking, we self-monitor, we self-police our actions and our words. Now, in the Western current civilizational mode, there is a slightly different way of navigating existence. And it's the sort of manner which I recall in my early years, I would happily take a motor vehicle apart to try and find this fascinating little motor that was inside it. But in doing so, you would break the vehicle and you could never put it together again. And there's an attitude which says, we will just go forth without understanding what the potential consequences could be, and we will learn from experience, and some of those experiences take a long time to recover from. And the technology which is being developed, the approach to technology, is exactly like those first 3 sages. It's because we can do it, we're going to do it, and hey, the consequences we'll cope with. But we've had 250 years of this model of civilization and of being, and I would say we're in a state of flux where it's almost becoming terminal that changes. The next generation who are coming to the front and articulating their voice, they're also drawing the line and saying, sorry guys, that way of doing things is unsustainable. We have a civilization which is at least 5,000 years of continuous existence in harmony with the environment in which we find ourselves, and we never depleted the Earth's resources. We never compromised the ecological systems to anywhere near the degree to which they've been compromised by this other way of being and doing. So part of being a member of the Bharatiya tradition is that we have this understanding of what not to do. And that, I think, is an important part.